This is the last known footage of the Thylacine, filmed in 1935 at the Beaumaris Zoo in Hobart, Tasmania, featuring Benjamin, the endling of his species. Benjamin died on the night of 6 to 7 September 1936, after he's been neglected, locked out of his sheltered sleeping quarters by the zookeeper, and was exposed to freezing temperatures of the Tasmanian night. Although the Thylacine has been a rare sight in the mid-20th century, people at that time didn't know that Benjamin was the last of his kind. Even to the present day, the extinction of the Thylacine has been frequently disputed. More than 1,000 sightings have been reported, some as recently as 2019. A large-scale survey using camera traps was even conducted in 2017 in mainland Australia to find the supposedly hidden Thylacine individuals. After Benjamin's death, the Hobart Zoo expected to quickly find a replacement Thylacine. However, similar to many other surveys and extensive year-long search operations, both privately organized and government-funded, their efforts to find a living Thylacine were to no avail. Since Benjamin's death, there has been no clear evidence of the Thylacine's continued existence. Despite that, reports of its sightings were increasing in frequency. Between 1936 and 1986, there have been 360 reports of alleged sightings from Tasmania. 104 reports obtained by the TNPWS were analysed. The details showed that the majority of the sightings occurred at night, which might be expected as the Thylacine was a nocturnal animal. The locations of the sightings also roughly correspond to the areas in which it used to be hunted, and not closely related to the distributions of roads or human population. Reports from outside of Tasmania have also been recorded. 203 sightings were reported in Western Australia from 1936 to 1998. And in 1997, several Thylacines were supposedly seen by locals of Western New Guinea or West Papua. It was also claimed that missionaries working in the remote mountains had known about the tigers for many years, but had not made an official report. These sighting reports inspired numerous searches and investigations. Some were amongst the most remarkable animal search operations in history, like a large-scale $250,000 expedition in 1984, the installment of more than 50 high-tech camera traps in 2017, extensive year-long government-funded search in 1982, and a reward offer of more than $1 million in exchange for a live Thylacine. Probably the most notable was one conducted by an Australian zoologist, Jeremy Griffith. He and his dog, Loaf, took on what is now regarded as the most intensive search operation ever done for the Thylacine, and probably for any animal. Griffith, supported by James Malley, spent a total of 6 years on the search from 1967 to 1973. His efforts included establishing the Thylacine Expeditionary Research Team with Dr. Bob Brown, exhaustive surveys along Tasmania's west coast, deployment of camera traps, and prompt investigations in response to sighting claims. The Thylacine was native to Tasmania, Australia, and New Guinea, but it is believed to have already been locally extinct in the latter two regions, probably in prehistoric times. By the time Europeans made settlements in the region, Tasmania was the only remaining natural range of the Thylacine. Commonly known as the Tasmanian tiger or Tasmanian wolf, the Thylacine is actually not closely related to both of those animals. It is a carnivorous marsupial, closer to a kangaroo. It showed a clear example of convergent evolution, where members of separate groups of animals independently evolved similar traits to occupy similar ecological niches. The Thylacine evolved stripes, similar to tigers, and its skull bears an uncanny resemblance to those of canids, wolf, and specifically red fox. One of the Thylacine's striking features is its jaw's capacity to gape an astonishing 90 degrees wide, one of the largest, arguably second only to hippos. Thylacines were shy, mainly nocturnal animals, rarely sighted during the day. Most of what is known about the Thylacine's behavior is based on hearsay and speculations. Some characteristics have been interpolated from its close living relative, the Tasmanian devil. Undesirable titles such as blood drinker, and troublesome creature began to be attributed to the thylacine to accompany its reputation as an agricultural pest. The thylacines had been frequently accused of preying on farmers' sheep. In a report from one region, 147 sheep were said to have been killed by thylacines. This led to the establishment of large-scale bounty schemes. Between 1888 and 1909, the Tasmanian government paid out 2,184 bounties, and still there were many more unclaimed thylacine kills and private companies' bounty kills. A conflicting discovery was made when the skull mechanics of the thylacine were analyzed. It was found that the thylacine mainly preyed on small animals. Its jaws were feeble, and it had a comparatively moderate bite force. An adult thylacine was revealed to be incapable of handling a prey larger than 5 kilograms. Farmers might have mistaken dogs for thylacines, killing their sheep. Added with the fact that a 1921 photo of a thylacine with a chicken in its mouth that was widely distributed appears to have been faked. It was cropped to hide the fence run. The animal was a mounted specimen, and it might even have involved photo manipulation. The thylacine's reputation as a predator of domestic animals, intentionally or not, might have been fabricated. Intensive hunting incentivized by bounties is considered to be the driving force of the thylacine's population crash and eventual demise. But there might have been other contributing factors: competition to feral dogs, extinction of its prey species, and mainly a disease outbreak in 1910 that affected both thylacines and Tasmanian devils have reduced their numbers. The devil's population managed to bounce back, but the thylacines never recovered. An effort to save the species has taken an unconventional route. Beginning in 1999, the Australian Museum started the effort to clone thylacines. Although many has dismissed the project as merely a publicity stunt and doubted if it's even possible, the project continued and has had some success in extracting replicable DNA from preserved specimens. But in early 2005, the extracted DNA was found to be too badly degraded and unusable. The museum then stopped the project. Soon after, however, it was announced that the project was being restarted, not by the museum, but by a group of universities and a research institute. In 2008, researchers from the University of Melbourne and the University of Texas in Austin reported that they managed to restore functionality of a gene obtained from 100-year-old ethanol-fixed thylacine tissues from museum collections. And a complete thylacine mitochondrial genome was successfully sequenced by another group of researchers. This suggests that sequencing the complete thylacine nuclear genome might be feasible. In August 2022, the University of Melbourne has partnered up with Colossal Biosciences, a Texas-based biotech company that aims to resurrect several extinct animals, to accelerate the resurrection process of thylacines. The revival of extinct animals by humans will be explained in a future video. Research into thylacines is highly dependent on specimens held in museums. Currently, there are 756 specimens, distributed in 115 museums and university collections in 23 countries. The IUCN Red List, up until 1982, after more than 40 years after the last known thylacine died, still labeled it as very rare and believed to be declining. Many believe that the thylacine still lurked in the Tasmanian bushes. This belief has been compounded by frequent reports of sightings. Yet, repeatedly, despite a multitude of investigations and search operations using automatically triggered cameras with infrared sensors, trackers, helicopter searches, and snares and traps, no thylacine was encountered. In mainland Australia, West Papua, and Tasmania, where all the claimed sightings have been reported, of all the subsequent searches big and small, failed to find any thylacines, but most did not conclude that the thylacines had died out. After spending a total of 2 years camped out in the field, failed to find any proof of a living thylacine, Jeremy Griffith ended his 6-year-long exhaustive investigation in 1973 with a definitive conclusion, opposite to his initial expectation, that the thylacine was indeed extinct. Speculations and stories about the mysterious existence of a few elusive surviving thylacines have bled into the fringe pseudoscience territory and has become a topic in the cryptozoology community. Many eyewitnesses acknowledged the risk of being ridiculed for making such a claim, and so chose not to report their sightings. It is believed that the number of sightings which remained unreported may be comparable to those reported. Most of the witness accounts were seen as honest and genuine. Some came from qualified and experienced observers who stood to gain nothing from making a fraudulent claim. But sighting reports are not and should not be used as an evidence for an animal's existence. Although genuine, these sightings do not necessarily reflect reality. Distinct peaks in a report's frequency coincide with the timings of publicity caused by big thylacine searches. This correlation might explain why hundreds of thylacine sightings were also being reported in mainland Australia. Yet, prior to 1936, in the 200 years since European settlement, not a single live thylacine has ever been found. People might have misidentified dingoes or feral dogs as thylacines after seeing them being talked about in the media. It is undeterminable if the thylacine eyewitnesses were all mistaken, but the lack of any supporting evidence for over 80 years is sufficient to allow us to conclude with high certainty that the thylacine is, and has been for many decades, extinct.